It's not gonna be airing a lot. Unless it's the accident. I don't know. I don't know if they're. Right. It's gonna push me out on the road in a wheelchair. Oh, no, those are for cars.
Yeah, but I. Went back and forth 3 times. I say.
Research.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the village board meeting of Tuesday, February 6th. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Teddy, here, Block,
Here.
Malco,
Here.
Simon,
Here.
right,
Here.
Gustafson,
Here,
thank you.
item 4, is there any public comment? Item 5. President's report. Nothing was evening. Item 6, treasurer's report. May I have a motion? To that. If you take a look in your docs, you have the cash report. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
Teddy, wait a minute, I have a question. Be astute. What do we need?
That is just the hosting of the current, just the physical location where our current stored. They do it 3 months at a time. So that's the 3 months. I think that's the end in February, maybe. I think. But yeah, that's just the storage for the online web hosting currently, until we get our new system
Well, and
completely
that-
on 100%, and then that will go away at that,
When do you anticipate that?
March 1st.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is this the last bill we'll receive from Kerlinkus Law?
I think there are actually 2 more months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one more time, so in February.
End
February.
of February,
Yeah.
okay. I just remember you saying February.
Yep.
Thank you.
So if you look at the expense report, the bills that you are paying tonight, invoices that you are paying tonight are $424,671.06. And as you see in the pooled checking account, $8,081,458.79, which we're not going to spend all in one place. And motor fuel, under motor fuel, salt. Being safe is expensive, but well worth it, so good job, thank you. And we see that we had expenditures there of salt, $167,094.32. Leaving $1,382,645.44 in the MFT fund. So we have a motion and a second to pay bills. Calling for the vote, please.
Teddy,
Yes.
Block,
Yes.
Malco,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Item 7.1, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 16th meeting?
So
Second.
Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, calling for the vote, please.
Right,
yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Falco.
Yes.
As we have a light agenda tonight, we have nothing under number 8 and number 9. Number 10, is there anything someone wishes to ask or bring up regarding old business?
The website was went in March.
First, yep. They're transferred about, and then hopefully at the same time, we'll be also doing our new board packet system. Will be the goal for that. That training starts.
Anything else? Item 11, public comment. No public comment. Number 12, there is no need for an executive session. 13, may I have a motion to adjourn? So, all in favor, say aye. For the record, be the shortest.
5 minutes.
Wow, that is.
Okay. Does anyone need a break before we go?
That's good. Yeah, Joe, don't you have a presentation to do?
Yep, I know, lots of patients, yeah.
Next meeting. How long have you had those for? This is the first time. Nice. How'd that get done? Was that?
That's when I got it out.
I am, he was pointing out. Thinking, what? Now I remember, I knew its name. Oh, my goodness.
Are we ready for the?
Let's go.
All right. I'll order the committee of the whole meeting for February 6, 2024. We have a roll call.
Babcock,
Yes.
Teddy. Yes. Black,
Here.
Falco,
Here.
Sima,
Here.
Right,
Here.
Gustafson. Here.
All right. First thing is approval of minutes from December 19th, 2024. The motion for approval of the committee minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any changes, corrections, amendments? All right, hearing none. Clerk, if we can have a roll call.
Anyone remember that meeting? Right,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Malaco,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Teddy. Yes. Babcock.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next thing, item 4, public comment. Any public comments? We'll have that end as well, so if you have something you want to bring up, we can hold up to the end. All right, item 5 is new business. First item is discussion of entering into a professional service agreement with Place Foundry LLC to provide economic development consulting services to the village of Roscoe. In your board packet, you have a proposal from Place Foundry. As you all know, we hired them recently to create the Main Street plan, the sort of master development plan there. We've also asked them to provide us a proposal to provide some general economic development consulting services. And that's the proposal you have in your board packet right now. Essentially what they would be doing is putting together, and I also put in your board packets our previous sort of version of what we're asking them to do from the retail coach. The village hired them about 10 years ago or so. Sort of a similar type of the firm. They put together some materials for us, sort of highlighting gap analysis, sort of seeing what type of businesses we are missing here, where the money goes, the demographics, as well as they put together some marketing materials for some of our more vacant properties and some of our sort of our land that's available for development. So we haven't done that in about 10 years. Obviously, we've changed a lot in that time, including the logo, which is on there. But what we'd be asking Place Foundry to do is sort of serve as our sort of on-call advisor, economic development consultant to, first of all, we'd ask them to put together some materials, just update the ones we have here. Let's see what we need, who are we missing? What type of businesses are we missing? What locations do we have? Sort of getting that idea in place, sort of doing that initial study of the village, providing us with that information. And after that, depending on how that comes back, we would ask them, the on-demand portion of this is, we would ask them to say, focus on specific areas, specific parts of the village, or if we had a developer that we wanted them to work with, we could direct them to work with that person. Sort of just general economic development consulting services for the village. Do we have any general questions about that, or what they would be doing, what we're asking them to do? Obviously, it's just that committee.
So the original 775.5 is just Main Street. This would be an additional
Yep.
X amount.
This would be
of
instead of hiring the retail code you're hiring. We had a in-house person, part-time, I think it was a contractor as well, a few years ago as well. It'd be a whole separate project. It would be economic development services. I know you would be one of them. We could direct them to do that. The reason why they proposed it as a sort of an on-call services is sort of, I don't know if it's confusing or not, but the on-call services is that it allows us to direct them as we need them on different portions. So yeah, we've asked them to do maybe some of the I-90 area over there, give us some ideas for that, sort of help us develop a strategy for what we want to see there. Same with 251. We've got properties on 251 that are undeveloped. There's one main landowner who owns a lot of that land right there. Eventually he comes, occasionally we hear from them, they want to develop, or businesses come in, want to develop there. If that was the case, we'd say, okay, Place Foundry, take a look at this 251 property, help us give an idea of sort of how we want to develop this property. So it's sort of a broad scope of services all around economic development. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes, it's different than for that Main Street redevelopment project. Look at that as a standalone project that we hired them to help do a master plan for. This would be just a totally different type of service.
So the scope of
a
work,
la carte with them.
Yeah,
it's 1 year term,
this would be 1 year term.
and it's effective, when would this be effective? Immediately?
Immediately,
And then-
whenever we decided to.
2 options, pro premium, substantially different in monthly costs.
Yep, so we would just be asking for, and discussion we had, it'd be the initial one, trying to find it right here. It
The
would be
Place
the-
Mapping Pro, 5,900 a month.
Yep. Option one is Place Mapping Pro, $900 per month. And that is to do just these general consulting services. The Place Mapping Premium portion, if we got to the point where we wanted to start going out and recruiting businesses to come into the village, which we have in the past. I think we had retail coaches do that a little bit. We've done that at various times through here. That in that case, we could upgrade to that option, the option 2, that Place Mapping Premium portion. That would be the active recruitment of businesses in here. I don't know that we're ready for that at this point, or we're looking at that at this point. So I think the Place Mapping Pro, and this is their recommendation to, or what they've, suggested as well, is just to have a Place Mapping Pro portion of it. Be getting us in the position of being able to go out and recruit, or if we have businesses coming in, asking about the village, and then that's through any of our organizations we're part of as well, having those materials ready that we can say, yep, here's the village, here's what we've got, here's what we can do for you, here's what we're looking for, and then making sure that that meets what we want.
So we'd be under them for 155.5.
With the other one.
If you're
Oh.
looking at both of them,
Yeah.
however,
Yeah.
once the downtown stuff is done, it's not going to be a 10-year commitment.
Gotcha.
or
Oh, I
20-year
see what
commitment
you're saying.
or whatever. I would also like to point out, I don't know if you can bring up the pages, but on page 9, the timeline of services, giving us the new marketing material that we can use. They anticipate a 3-month kind of period to do that. And you'll see that their deliverable will be the analysis of the market and the broader community. And we'll have to find out from them, exactly. I want to know more about a kickoff meeting, what that will look like and when that's going to happen, that type of thing. But we all know that Village of Roscoe is in competition with everybody else in order to garner more investment in our community. So we need some updated information and we need to have a strategic plan to do that. And so this a la carte, as you said, Paul, seemed to be a good way to do it.
So Joe, would this be considered the strategic plan?
I mean, maybe part of our strategic plan, sure, I mean, it could consider part of that, absolutely. Like, what we want to see the village develop into, or what we're looking forward to promote in the village, sure. I mean, I think strategic plan has such a broad connotation or such a broad definition, but yeah, this would be part of it, absolutely. It would not be part of the comprehensive land use plan, which is a very different thing, but yes, it would be part of a strategic plan.
Questions, they help with grants, find grants,
They do.
support grants.
They do.
They don't write the grants, right? But they'll-
They would read the grants,
They
yeah,
write
they would
them.
read the grants, yep. They'll, and like, that's what we'll be doing for, Main Street, they'll be assisting on certain grants when they see those come as well, and see Fairgram is helping us on some that come up, but yes, they have grant writers.
And
Is
then,
there a charge for that?
It'd be part, well,
So-
yes, everybody's just gonna be charged for that, but yes, it's part of this, it'd be part of this option here, this a la carte, like, not a la carte, but the on-call services.
It'd be.
If there was a grant that we wanted them to assist with, they would assist with that as part of this. We'd say, yep, this month or this time, we want you to focus on looking at this grant program and getting this prepared for us and creating the visual.
Writing the
Writing the grant, yeah,
No
Yeah.
additional cost
yeah. it'd be part
because
of
it's
the-
built
correct.
into the monthly fee.
It's part of the monthly fee, yeah.
Cool.
the other question was, digital assets, website, social media
Yes,
communications.
they would assist us with that.
So they will, with the new website, they can work and integrate with that.
Yeah, they can assist, yep.
And so like, communications, let's say we want to market, the fact that we have a new website, could they help us with that?
I guess, I suppose they could. I don't know that that's, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they could help us with that. I don't know if that's their
I'm just
focus,
saying
but yeah,
there's-
they could absolutely, yeah. Yep. And that's, again, that's why, yeah, it's, anything we sort of want them to focus on economic development consulting wise, they've got a pretty broad team that they work with. So that they have as part of theirs. They've got a design team as well as sort of the economic development and the planning part as well.
That would be an immediate need, that would be helpful.
One other question, the responsibility of the board and the board's engagement between this and Main Street, what are we looking at? How many extra meetings?
I think the Main Street one is probably easier. It's sort of broken down into the first phases, but I think there'll be a couple probably one or two extra meetings during the Main Street initial development portion, right? We can have some of the discussions at the board meeting, but at some point you want to have a separate meeting for that. So I think there's at least one plan in the first 3 months for the Main Street project. This would be dependent on what we want them to do. I imagine they're going to want to, talk to us a little bit on that initial timeline of what do you want to see? Do you want us to see I-90? What do you want it to look like? What are your desires for the village? We'll ask those questions and leave those. I guess I don't know how many meetings there's going to be at this point for that, but there would be some additional, I imagine a few additional meetings.
You showed me something, I think it had to do with Main Street.
Yeah, I showed you, yeah,
And-
we got a draft, sort of a timeline for the Main
And there
Street
were-
project.
I thought there were 3
With
meetings.
the board, there's one main one the first few months, and they're gonna be putting on some workshops.
Yeah,
The board will be part of as well, but the public will be. And as well as essentially a separate one just for the board to get their input on.
And is this in the budget then? Do we actually have this?
Well, it is in the draft budget, yes, yeah. And it's, this is shown. We won't, we asked for a proposal because they will be working on the Main Street project and will be familiar with the village, familiar with all of you. And sort of their goals for the village, so that's what we asked for the proposal. There are, of course, other consultants out there. This is not something that's like, desperate need, you have to do it or the village will fall apart. But it is something we absolutely should be doing, sometime soon, this year, hopefully, get that about 10 years since we get done with previously. So it's a good time to get that materials updated and get that service.
so this is line 139. Well, I called yesterday. That's what I.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yes, correct. The label line 139.
As we strive to build out the infrastructure there. I-90, Willowbrook, Brockton, Love Road, et cetera. We need to have a general consensus. I think once that is done, it's going to be not only usable, but attractive. We need to have a consensus as to what it is we would like to see developed in that area. And before we can do that, we need to know, we all have a general idea anecdotally of what our strengths and weaknesses are, by getting some data that supports that, and then a way to advertise what we want. As I said before, we're in competition, so now we have a assistant, a consultant service, they can help us do that. We can have some continuity.
Motion, do you want to discuss more? Do you want to have them come in and talk? Do you want
I
to?
would like to have them come in and talk. And I'd also like to get an idea, is this the going rate regionally? Just,
Yeah, we can get some comparables. I'll just note that I think we had, what we paid, I think we're in there from Retail Village, about $40,000 10 years ago.
I thought it
For
was,
very
okay.
40, I think it might have been combined, but I think portion we have here was 40,000. I think you're right, they did some other work for us after that, so 50, but, so I would say yes, is very comparable to it was, 10 years ago. So, but yeah, if you like, we can find some other.
Huh?
What other places are paying for them, or for these services?
Sue, when do you wish this presentation to happen?
Next.
Board Committee of the whole, or board, or
Committee of a whole.
Yeah.
16?
Sure, the-
Or whatever the date is.
Yeah. 16,
20,
20, 20th.
20.
I guess that point, we have motion relating this over to the 20th, or lay this over to committee of the whole on February 20th.
So
Second.
Actually, all in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? All right, next is item 5.2, discussion of the approval of the final plat number 2 of Roscoe Junction. And put this off and check in here. We do have the developer here. It's Darko, is it Gligorevich?
Yes.
I make sure I pronounce it right. Developer here from Ambassador Homes, who is proposing this. He is here as well. And I will put this on the screen. Moment, and we can talk about this. So this is a final plat of the subdivision. Some of you may remember, we had actually previously approved a final plat of the subdivision in 2022, I believe. It was a different developer, essentially the same design, had not been approved. It was approved by the board and it was never recorded. That developer did not record it. Our plats expire after 12 months, the plats expire, which means you go back through the whole replat or the platting process again, sort of from scratch, which is where we're at right now. Let me share my screen quick. And so. So this is the general location. So this is the plat you have in front of you, the location of the development. So on Willowbrook, Bigger Road, that corner there, that triangle property here. In December, so I'll sort of back up a little bit. In December, ZBA meeting, the ZBA actually approved the design review portion of this. So they approved the actual the designs of that development. That was sort of done separately through the ZBA at a separate timeline. That's been approved by the ZBA. That was approved prior to tonight's meeting. So we're.
In
what's-
December.
In December ZBA, correct. So where we're at currently is the plat portion of it. So these are the, how it's gonna look. This is the actual, this is the layout. Here's the, and this is, sorry if it's extreme, but here's the, this is the sort of the site layout of that property where those three family units are gonna be located. It's gonna be essentially it's a public roadway that cul-de-sac is public roadway there. Once you get past that, those are all private drives. It's actually a long private drive to that farthest fifth unit out there, but that's all private roadway there. I know Fairgrounds reviewed it for their engineering portions of it. And there's one or two comments that they're working with engineers to get sort of finalized on it. But generally, it's been approved by Fairground for engineering purposes, been approved, village-wise, it meets our ordinances for the actual plating process. And so you have it here. And then I'll show you I'll actually, if anybody has questions for the developer, we can call him up if you have questions for him. Here's a color version he provided me earlier of that same design. Layout, this is what you have in your board packet, but so the public can sort of see this too. You've got this, that's the design of it, of the actual three families that will be on that property. But again, tonight's purposes, this has been approved at ZBA. Tonight's purposes are the plat itself, approving, actually plating that subdivision, as you saw on there. Would you like to have the developer come up and ask questions or?
Being a new, this happened before we were on the board originally. I sort of the history of like the property and what happened and how it came to be and how you came to acquire this and sort of your information. That'd be helpful to know.
So,
Introduce yourself, just so we can all.
my name is Darko Woodward. I'm the owner of Ambassador Homes, or just small developer from Loves Park. We do build houses here in Roscoe from time to time, but our area is about an hour from Rockford, so we do Freeport, Marengo, Rochelle, Beloit, all over. We don't develop big subdivisions, but we do a few houses here and there, and one of these is similar development we did for somebody else on Harrison and Rockford for William Charles. So we have quite a bit of experience of doing multifamilies and everything else and duplexes. But how this got to us was I believe Mark Payne used to own this this plat, and they were gonna develop it, but I think it wasn't feasible. It was expensive to do it themselves. Had to hire somebody else to do it and then make money. It just wasn't feasible. So I purchased it from him, and we pretty much used the exact same plat or exact same design that they have. We just implemented different buildings. We added a few more, and I think with adding the few more that we can rent, then it becomes a little more feasible for us, especially when we develop it ourselves. Now, last time at the ZBA meeting, everybody liked the design. We added a few things like brick on the side, some of the landscaping, some of the other stuff that they asked, which we kind of changed that. We sent it to the board and to the village as an update. And also, I think Brandon went back and forth with my engineer, R.K. Johnson. So we cooperated with that. I think we got everything where it needs to be so far. So
you're developing and you own it as well, and
we're gonna own it. Yeah, we're gonna own it. Yes.
looks like an interesting piece of property on it. Sort of like.
It's kind of, yeah, it's not a great shape of the property to develop, but I think it's the location of it is good. And just by being right at the bike path, and access to that bike path and walking distance to the shops and restaurants and bars, I think makes sense.
Yeah. What's on the other side of the street there on the?
Poison ivy and
The church.
there on the, yeah, the other side of the church, yes.
When this was first proposed, how many buildings We're going to be on
I
it.
think he had duplexes, so they were wide and big garages. I think he had like 10 or 11 maybe.
This plan will be how many?
It's
15
5
units.
buildings, 3 each, so 15 units.
And the rentals.
They're gonna be rentals, yeah. And they're gonna be high-end rentals. I mean, we just developed a few of the single family, as I call it, single family condos up in Rockford. And we put granite in them, we were renting $2,300 a month. So they're gonna be high-end rentals.
How much?
2,300 in Rockford. Yeah, so these we're hoping to do two grand.
You say they're 3 bedroom?
3 bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Is that a single car garage or double?
It's a single car garage, but it's a little bit deeper than just a normal, so it's 1.5, so somebody can put a bike or a little bit of storage. I wish I could fit 2, but just couldn't.
And isn't there other developments north of there as well? Just right north.
Yes,
of
those
there,
are,
so-
yeah, those are ranch style.
Yeah, so it'll sort of fit in there. And as
Mhm.
far as the aesthetics, what would be facing as you're driving down Willowbrook, what would you be seeing? I can't tell from like.
So if you look at,
The front, you'd see the front of all of them?
yeah, so if you look, I don't know if you can, Joe, if you can move
Yeah, the
that,
bottom.
zoom it down on the
Yeah.
bottom. But you can kind of see that the back, those
Yeah.
patios, those are gonna be also covered. Show you here. So we also have each one of these got covered patio, so it's got a little bit of privacy in the back as well and protection of the sun. But all of the Willowbrook, you'll be seeing the front of the houses, except the first one, obviously, when you turn into the Willowbrook. That was the discussion we had as far as what we should put on the side. We decided to put some bricks just because of the visibility of that. And that's where the pond is gonna be and everything else, so we'll have some landscaping there as well.
That's right in the corner of Willowbrook.
An elevator.
Willowbrook,
So the Life Church is right across from.
right, there, you can see the parking lot there.
Make it out.
What always comes up with multiple dwellings is mail. Where are people going to collect their mail here?
So my plan was right at the roundabout, I was gonna put one of the common boxes. And everybody's gonna have a key, so there's not gonna be too many, people going and mail, so mail guy is gonna just turn around there, put the mail in and go.
And refuse removal, your safe container for building, or everyone has their own?
It's gonna be standard as any other building. I mean, everyone's gonna have their own, and they're gonna have to bring it over to the roundabout.
When is this proposed to be completed?
Well, I was really hoping to start at least a couple buildings by March. So I was hoping to put a couple foundations by March and then kind of slowly go.
This might not be an appropriate question, so if you don't feel good about answering, but at this time with interest rates being high, do you end up having to finance yourself, or do you make loans on this?
We finance some of it ourselves, but most of it's gonna be through the bank, obviously, yeah. It's coming down a little bit. It's not a project where you're gonna get rich on. We're just hoping for the equity and,
Over time.
yeah, and then hopefully the interest are gonna go down, we can refinance. But as right now, any developer will tell you, as long as you don't lose money, if you wanna do something, you can do it, but as long as, not losing money on it.
I have a question about guest parking. It seems as though when you use the circle and you drive south to those 3 buildings, and we have 1-car garages and a short driveway. Somebody has a birthday party. Where's everybody going to park here? Is there some overflow parking anywhere?
Well, you should be, obviously, you should be able to park in, a couple cars in front of the garage. But that little street, the private street that goes up and down, there's little areas in there that you can just pull on a side. I mean, there's not tons of overflow parking, but there's some that you can.
So your whole street is going to be how wide? I can't tell from the drawing.
You got a 2-lane road?
It's true, yeah, I think.
Off our top of my head, I do not.
Spaces?
Sorry,
Is there a way to add parking at the end of that street where there's, that looks like open space?
it's the detention.
Yeah, that's where the detention basin is gonna be at the end.
That's here.
So if there's no water in there, they could drive down.
Right. It's 18 feet wide, so I mean, you can.
Bypass.
What is standard 22?
Actually, technically per IDOT, 18 is allowed on low traffic. This is a private driveway, so
Right.
it's not a roadway, but 20 is actually okay for low volume, low speed roads. 22 is the recommended width, 11 feet at a, if you can. And then ideal scenario is 12 feet, so 24 feet wide.
Thank you.
So do you put in an HOA for this kind of thing?
We would not. I mean, we do have it all prepped as a, each unit would have its own connection. So if, you know, later on, if we decide to sell them individually or get the HOA on it, we can, because everything's gonna be kind of.
So we manage the leases on them
Mhm, yeah,
yourself?
we manage
When
it
you do
in-house.
that, do you have some stipulations in the lease, like, okay, you can't have 4 families fitting in one of these houses?
Yeah, we go through, I mean, we screen them pretty good. Yeah, we don't, we use our,
You won't want 5 families breaking up $2,300 a month. with
No,
5 cars.
no, we, I mean, we have some units in, we have quite a few units in Machete Park. We have similar square footages, the 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. And we look at that pretty good. We don't want any subleases. We don't want, you know what I mean? We try to see, make sure that it's the families or.
What's the biggest development you've done size wise?
Not for us, but we've done, I mean, we've probably done maybe 35 units for AC Johnston up on a lot bigger units than these. 2,400 square foot, 3-story.
We just wonder, I personally just wonder if you'd be interested in buying a Hawks Point development in Diesel.
I think that would be mad.
Back, any other questions, I guess, about the plat itself?
No, it's good.
Brandon, do you have any comments you wanna?
No, it was great to work with Darko and his team. RK Johnson was their engineer. They were very responsive on our comments. When they made their original submittal, we did not have any major concerns, which was good. We're still working through one final detail as far as the storm sewer goes and who's going to own that, but I think we should be able to come to a resolution on that. But substantially, it was a great submittal, and looking forward to working with them.
Point, motion to move board. Motion in a second,
So moved.
so a motion by trustee Malco, second by trustee, right?
Simon.
Trustee Sima, okay, trustee Sima, roll call.
Simon,
Yes.
Malaco,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes,
Wright,
Yep.
Betty.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. Board on February 20th, for approval, or final approval.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Next item. Next item is item number 5.3. It's discussion recommendation of amendments to chapter 110 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the code enforcement officer or designating the code enforcement officer as the investigating officer for the issuance of business licenses on the Village of Roscoe. So we currently, chapter 1110, which you have in your code book or in your packet, designates certain investigating officials to be the people who sort of look at the applications, accept applications, review them, and then identify if there's any issues, and then actually notify the clerk to officially issue the permits or licenses. This is really just currently, these are all designated as the village police chief, actually, is the person who designates, investigates somebody coming for a massage license, or if they're going to do door-to-door solicitation or, various other, industries. What we're doing, what this is, ordinance does is it changes that from being the chief of police into the code enforcement officer to actually investigate those licenses, make sure the applications are in, make sure the background checks are done if required, and then just sort of track those and make sure those are properly being carried out. So all it's changing on this is changing it from police chief to code enforcement officer. I don't know, Sam, do you have any issues with that or concerns?
No, and I've talked to code enforcement officer Wilder, like, we've also discussed this, and if it becomes, something becomes a criminal issue possibly, that's when he gets a hold of us, they'll take over an investigation or something. The reason for this coming up now, is it just something that is always we needed to do?
It's just a cleanup thing, beginning of the year. We've been talking about this for a while, actually. And we sort of pretty much have transferred a lot of this over to Officer Wilder anyway, sort of designated by the chief of police. This just makes it more official and sort of cleans up that, takes off the chief's plate and formalizes what we're doing, procedures. Discussion, all right, so do a motion to approve.
So moved.
Percent of the board, I should say, thank you.
Second.
Motion by trustee Petty, it's trying to pay attention, please. Second by trustee White. Right, sorry. Any more discussion, questions? If not, can I have a roll call?
Babcock,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Plot,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Malco.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the board. February 23rd. 5.4 is discussion and recommendation of amendments to chapter 115 of the Code of Ordinances related to issuance of special event permits. Very similar to last portion. Currently, our code designates the chief of police as the person who accepts all special event permit applications, reviews them, coordinates all the activity, makes the meetings, does everything to do with those, and then finally issues that special event permit. This again moves that position over to our code enforcement officer slash community development person, which is Vic Wilder. So we'll sort of move to that over the side of the building to review and sort of coordinate all of those issues. Anything?
I just had a comment about,
Sure.
like, some of this too, like the previous one, we used to have code enforcement in
Yeah.
our side of the building also, that's why some of the stuff. also-
Actually, I suppose with new people,
We-
yes.
Code enforcement used to fall.
Yeah.
under G until Wilder came,
Yeah.
and then now he's assigned to.
Yeah, the village hall's administrative side.
If I may add, also part of this process is improving internal communication, and that with Mr. Wilder being in charge of this, there will be sign-off sheets so that we are assured that each department knows what their responsibility is and that they've been informed. So for example, Public Works Department, if they have to get out barricades or something of that nature, they are aware also of every special event that's happening. And there may be tasks that are applicable to them or there may not be. And the same thing applies to the police department, so that we now have, everyone knows what's going to be happening and we can coordinate the services wherever needed.
Can we fix the language in this? You have it down as village administrator.
I do. I have it as administrator just to have that as the issuing person, and then it'll be sort of designated to that, just because it is currently the job we have is code enforcement officer, and so it was either that or it could be the village administrative assistant, I guess. The reason for that was just to have sort of the officer position, title position, be the person issuing these special event permits. So going from, chief of police to sort of a chief administrative person, but yes, it will be our code enforcement officer. And then if we ever when we formalize his job description, if we want, we can update this to reflect that community development to a director position that I think he was hired in as. But that was the reason for it. So it will be him, but that's the reason why it's village administrator. Like, I won't
As long,
actually-
as long as it's actually.
Yeah,
him.
Yeah, yep, I won't actually be
Down the
doing
line
it,
and
yep.
have You doing more of what you need. to.
Yep, that's, yeah, absolutely. It was just because of, is the sort of the officer
Right.
position, so. That was.
So you don't need to put that anywhere in the language that he's actually doing.
No, I can officially designate him in there saying you can designate will be in charge of it, but, yep.
As I read that, doesn't it state, I don't have it up, administrator or designate?
Yes, yeah,
So,
Yeah, but.
it was just,
So the-
I understand you're,
Confused.
Right.
I understand you're,
So
yeah,
I just want to make
Forgot
sure
we had
you're
it
not
like
doing
that.
more than
Yeah.
we need you.
that was the reasoning for it, and if we create that, sort of formalize that job description, then it would, we can
Fix it.
redress that language if you like, yeah, in the future.
Just don't want you to feel some future being confused about it.
Yep. Okay, any more, I guess, questions or comments? I have a motion to approve, or a motion to send that to the board for approval.
so moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, we can call the roll.
Malaco,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Sima.
Yes.
Motion approved, we'll be moving. For final board action. Next item on the agenda is section, it's number 5.5. It's the discussion recommendation of the board for approval for Officer Sarver to attend the crash investigation classes as part of his duties with the police department. I will have Chief Holly
Yeah, so
address that.
we did have an accident crash investigator. This makes him certified to testify in court, do total accident instructions and any fatals or major crashes where there's great bodily harm. Also part of this is I sit as the chair for the Winnebago County for the MCAT team, so the major crash assistance team. So any major crash that involves serious injury, possible death or death, that is my team. Goes anywhere actually in the county except for the city of Rockford, they have their own stuff. But we have multiple people from multiple agencies involved, it's us, Florida, Brockton, Erie Valley. The sheriff's department, who obviously has like several crash investigators, and then also Loves Park. This just puts one, we used to have one on the team, now this will put us, another one on the team, we all lost a student. And so that just fills that role, and any of our own within the village will actually be the specifically assigned for reconstruction of that. And these reconstructions, I mean, can take 6 months to a year to actually put it all back together. All the equipment and everything that's used on the team is purchased by the sheriff's department. They actually have their own office, which they're talking about possibly moving them to Chesney, with all the computers and, all the equipment that they need in order to redo these reconstructions. So this just puts them all the way through the classes to be able to run that equipment and testify in court.
Once they have this, do they have to be keep up with accreditation or?
They have to keep up with certain things, but it's not that much after that as far as when they have to keep up with any other for their license or whatever you want to call it, but it's a very difficult course. I mean, it's like just lots of formulas, just completely 9 weeks of math, basically.
Does it turn into a crash document? Is that what you create? You don't have physical recreation of the crash?
Yeah, so basically it's the document of it, but it'll be put into, I mean, they can judge speed on this, based upon the crash, angles. As far as like, you know, if they slid across pavement, gravel, grass, they calculate all that. And basically they can then take the entire thing and after they totally and completely recreate it, not like speed, but impact, point of impact. I mean, they can basically end up with basically a digital crash on the entire thing, vehicles, and they put it all back together. In order to decide then at that point, we have a state's attorney that's assigned to fatals. And with that state's attorney, then decide whether or not there's going to be criminal charges or not. They'll also be doing then, like right now, our detective will start to do search warrants and stuff as far as like black boxes of vehicles, cell phones, that kind of thing. This person then would also then be responsible for doing the search warrants on the devices that we need.
Is that what the insurance company would also use as far as paying claims?
Yeah, insurance companies, they have accident reconstruction. I mean, and a lot of the time it's retired officers because it's, you know, I mean, they're know how to testify in court and stuff as well. But the officer that we're sending right now, he's from Roscoe, looking at that too, just because of the price on it, make sure that someone's gonna stick around before we put this amount of price tag on them, that much training.
Yeah.
And he has full idea of just staying in the hospital to retire. And he's from the area, he came from our hospital fire, he was raised in the area, so he's like.
And we probably all met him, right?
What's up?
We've met this guy. He's.
Yeah, yep, Officer Sarver, I think it's been on, a year and a half, 2 years. So, and normally we wouldn't get somebody as new as that either. However, he's proven himself to be able to accomplish actually passing these courses, and it's a really specific, and also he's not the only one that's actually interested in it as well. It's things that we can't really force somebody to actually do this, because I mean, the amount of math and you actually have to have the drive and dedication to blind.
Is this $11,000 built into your proposed training budget for
Yes.
this year then?
Yep.
It's already in there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Motion we send to the board.
Second,
Motion by trustee Marquardt, second by, trustee second by trustee Black, you can roll call?
Simon,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Black,
yes.
Malaco,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Next, I will move to the board for the final approval, final action. Next we have is item 5.6. It is suggestion recommendation to the board for approval of entering into a 3-year agreement with Power DMS for purchase of the Power Ready software pack in amount of $5,600 for the first year and $3,500 for the following 2 years. And we'll turn this over to Chief Gold.
So in the budget, we currently, this would fall under subscription section in the budget. We've been paying roughly a little over $4,000 to Power DMS. And we use Power DMS currently for accreditation purposes. I've reevaluated all our subscription, and Power DMS for what we're actually using it for currently is basically only for accreditation. And they have an agreement with ILE, who the accreditation is through, that the portion that we need for Power DMS is like $550. So this, the first year would be about 2,000 more, but what this does is FTO books, and this has no reports in it. This is simply just a training book of 3 months of a new officer that we have piles of these, like in file cabinets piling up, but this actually would turn it then into a digital format. And the extra $2,000 the first year is to take the entire program and digitalize it in its Power DMS. After that, what we pay currently for Power DMS, and I've already signed paperwork to get rid of the other part of it for right now, it would only account to $20 more than what we're currently paying for both of those things. It's also attached to a CAD system, so any calls that come in would automatically go into Power DMS. It keeps track of the time, what things that they need to get done in like the first month or something, and it'll show them that, give them an alert that they're not quite where they should be, or they're up to the timeline as to where they should be. The FTO right now, kind of at the end of the shift, they come.
What's the FTO?
Field training officer.
Yeah, that's where we
Yep,
go.
a field training officer, it's the one that sits with the officer for 3 months. And they do daily evaluations every single day. and all that's forwarded through the chain of command. So this would actually, then we would have a computer or tablet is what we'd be using, and each call they can sit there and type as to what every single thing that they've done throughout the shift or any extra training that they've done throughout the shift, instead of just coming in at the end of the night, trying to write up a evaluation for the end of the night. And then it would all be stored digitally in the Power EMS system instead of that.
Does DMS stand for something?
Document management system.
Yeah, so basically we be getting just more bang for a buck. Go along with it too, we would gradually integrate our yearly evaluations into the system as well. It can do that. And then also onboarding. So we're trying to write different things for different jobs. So when you become a sergeant, we'd have onboarding as far as what training you should have, what to expect, what your duties are, which is also policy duties are, but this just kind of outlines it all, what classes you should attend. Same thing with detective, same with deputy chief, same thing with the chief. That way things are working, everything's working for the village of Roscoe, for the police department, the way it is now. So that way it kind of sets the standard as to where we want to be and anybody else coming in those roles. Obviously, that will progress as time goes on, but it's not just complete, just, okay, let's scrap everything. That years and years of what has become in order to work, it was actually then whoever else comes into these roles, they'll.
So all those training modules you have now are all paper for the most part.
We have
So
many,
when you have to update things, there's new things that need to be added to it. Do you have to send them out to printer and all that stuff? And
no, we print these books also. On our printer,
you print those up?
yep, every single.
Every new officer, right? Yeah.
Yep, every new officer that goes, and this is just, I actually took the, all the reports that the officer takes during their field training out of this. Because it was just too much. So I mean, there's actual, then this system,
There are policy.
we can actually upload all the reports. If there's something with policy that they directly, were dealing with on that call, we upload the policy that they were dealing with on that call directly into the system dealing with that specific call training.
Our policies are electronic, right? Our current policies are electronic.
Yes, yep.
That's flexible.
Is what we have.
So we have multiple systems. And then what's the evaluation system?
Guardian tracking right now is what we have.
So we have multiple systems across there. So I think this is we're in the first step, so it's sort of consolidating that shape too.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
going digital.
Trying to get more digital. Yeah, but yeah, we print every single one of these books out before they even go to the academy because we have pre-academy stuff in there for them. And field training, and then actually after they get out of the academy or out of training, the academy is 4 months, field training is 3 months. After that, during their probation period, we've also started a post-training evaluation. So depending on the officer, how well they're doing, that may only be done once a month. If they're struggling with something, then that evaluation will go to like every other week or every week or so. And then we'll progress as far as like whether there's discipline issues or if they need more training, something specific. And that goes all the way through their 18 months.
More questions?
How long do you have to keep those records?
I think we were just looking this up last week too. It's right around 90 years, I believe it was.
Even after they leave?
It's a long time, yes.
Or if they are upon their death, I believe it's
Yeah.
20 years after. So
Even if they
we're
leave,
stuck with
you
it.
still have to hold on to it.
And we are trying to decide, once we get Power EMS, we're still looking into whether or not we can take the originals and maybe upload in Power EMS system, or if we
Or they
have
should
to
be
actually
shared,
just
yeah.
keep these. So we're still
I
looking.
guess it's a good thing you don't have 100 officers.
Yeah.
You're not that.
We do have a lot of books, so.
They're live,
I know you have a
yeah.
lot of books. I'm sure you do, but.
So.
Motion sent to the board.
Second.
Motion by trustee Simon. Yes, trustee Simon, second by trustee Gallagher. Have roll call.
Babcock,
Yes.
Malaco,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Imma,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Block.
Yes.
All right, next item. We don't be sent to be approved to the board for fire action on budget 20. Next, we go to old business, item 6, old business 6.1, discussion recommendation, the fifth draft of the village of Roscoe fiscal year 2024 annual budget. So the draft is in your board packet, as well as what I provided to you, and if you can hand them out, if you guys would like copies, I can give this to in the audience. We have a summary sheet, 3-page summary sheet, gives you the sort of general fund, the revenues, summary of revenues, summary of expenditures, and then summary of our fund balances. And then finally, last page is into the capital projects, portions of it, which I think is probably at this point, obviously we have questions or we can discuss, the whole budget in general. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer those and we can talk through those. However, I think the big picture, big ticket items are these capital projects. And these are pulled right from the budget that you've got, and then in the main budget you have on just a single page, so you can sort of see those bigger items. Maybe prioritize some of those items. And the question came up last board meeting, where we are fund balance wise versus the whole budget. We have a surplus in our budget currently. So page here. We have a surplus in our general funds. Budget surplus or our fund surplus, fund balance. That if we were to spend all the money on all these projects listed in the capital funds, we would still be above that 33% fund balance requirement that we have set by policy. That being said, I don't want to just spend on all of these 100% on all of these, but that's where we sort of stand right now. We could transfer enough out of the general funds into the or out of the general fund into these allocated funds here to cover all of the capital projects that we have listed here and cover this entire budget. Just a reminder, I guess, maybe to the new people or the old people too, I suppose, or the prior board members as well. Well, we're passing this, upcoming, hopefully next week or 2 weeks or end of, later than the end of March, is our appropriation ordinance. This is just designating a big pot of money that we are going to authorize to spend throughout the year. In Illinois, when we either appropriation community or we're a budget community, Village of Roscoe is an appropriation community. That's the default. And until we get it changed, until we change it, and so process to change it, we have to pass an appropriation ordinance every year. We have a budget that helps us set that number and helps us direct our day-to-day spending and our yearly spending and our department head projects and what we do on a daily basis. But what the board actually needs to do to actually approve and pass is an appropriation ordinance. It's designating a bunch of money in a certain broad category that is our cap on what we can spend. That's sort of how that check and balance thing works. You are passing the cap that we spend in any given year. Any project that we have on here or any project you see all the time, we come back, any project essentially over $5,000, we have to bring back to the board. So we'll bring those back to the board. You'll have a second vote on any big amount of money that we spend as a village. This is just setting that big overall cap, saying here's the maximum we're going to spend in each of these broad categories throughout the year. So yes, it's important to sort of have an idea and have priorities of what we're going to spend on, but drilling down to the minutia at this point is not necessarily required. It's just knowing those priorities, knowing what we want to spend on and what areas we want to spend on. And so I guess with that said, we should go through some of these items, the capital projects. I don't know how much more discussion, we had a lot of discussion on all these items. Since the last draft of the budget, of course, everybody knows we've received the OSLEG grant for Porter Park. That's gonna be $600,000. You'll see that $600,000 expenditure that's in here. You're not gonna see the corresponding revenue on here because it's a matching grant, right? We have to spend $600,000 in addition to what we already received. That's not additional revenue that just comes in That offsets that 600 we have to spend, so that's in there, so we've got at least $600,000 we'll be spending on Porter Park. Big project, $1 million project there. Obviously, we've got the Main Street project coming here, another big project this board's prioritized already. We've already got that moving forward, we've got some of that in motion. And then, those other sort of bigger project we're looking at right now is Riverside Park, just getting that sort of, we've talked about getting that put to the position where we can use it for bigger events. Moving some of the large crowd events out of Porter Park or some other parks into Riverside Park. And so doing a little bit of work on that. But, so that's sort of where we are going into this year. And then, as we've talked before, we would like to put together a 5-year plan for parks, for capital budgets. And so we're gonna start bringing that forward. Staff's already looking at those projects. We're already starting to put together those numbers and those, future plans that we can bring to the board. You'll have another chance to approve those as we sort of set and establish ourselves maybe a 5-year goals for capital projects, for park projects, and those priorities. So generally what we're looking at right now for this budget, we just need to sort of get that big pot of money in those categories approved, moving forward, get us some general directions we can start the year, and then we'll start bringing in the more specifics to you throughout. So with that said, are there any specific questions or any parts you want to address or discuss?
Before we go too far,
Yeah.
What you said about the difference between appropriation versus a
Yeah.
budget community,
Yes.
it's the first time I've ever heard that, so can
Yeah.
you just explain the difference between the two?
So,
And what we have to do?
some communities will be, have approved, I think generally it's by ordinance and, or it's by default thing, type you are. You would set yourself to where you have a budget and you actually, the board would just pass a budget essentially. And you create a budget officer who's in charge of monitoring that budget, making changes throughout the year, and is able to actually move items, move line items from spot to spot themselves. So that's sort of a staff position. And we've talked about it here before in the past. We've talked about changing that in the past. And so it's been sort of, just some general concerns from the board of sort of losing some of the day-to-day control over that overall picture. The appropriation portion of it is, it's what we are currently is, we have to pass, we have to have a public hearing on the appropriation ordinance. And then once we pass the appropriation ordinance in, we're locked into those general outlays. So roughly, I suppose, what you see on the expenditures column there, those broader items, we're locked into those numbers. And so if we want to change those numbers, we have to bring it back and reappropriate money, or we can also transfer by ordinance, another public hearing by ordinance, we can transfer in between those, but the board itself has to transfer. So, and I know we may not have, we don't highlight it enough, or we should highlight it more. And we will start doing that as we go forward here, but identifying what item, when we start approving, we're approving things, we're passing resolutions or ordinances for contracts, for other agreements, for projects. We'll start highlighting, here's what this section is, here's where we appropriated this money and where it's coming out. Because if it's not appropriated, we're not allowed to spend that money. I mean, it's illegal for us to spend money and it's not appropriated. So that's why this is that sort of a little more of a check, or more sort of powered by the board to say, yeah, you have to have that money appropriated to be able to expend it. If it's not appropriated, we have to bring it back in front of here, have another, either a supplemental appropriation or a appropriation transfers. But it sort of increases sort of that, I guess, public transparency on the expending processes. It's a big check on our expenditures. So that's what these numbers
The
are.
main difference is the appropriation portion gives us more control over the budget versus a staff.
Generally, I suppose you want to say, sure, yeah, yep.
Just to
Yeah.
simplify it, I
Yeah.
guess, in my own.
And the power to set the priorities.
Yeah.
Right. Get to decide where we
Yeah.
versus someone else.
Or versus without, bringing it back to the board, or, yeah.
Oh, that we overspent here, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna take this.
Yeah, we have money here anyway, I'm just gonna transfer it myself, but we have some money here. This way, you would have to do that, yes. The appropriation ordinance, you have to do that.
I just never heard that budget community. term before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess for my own information, what I would like to know from each of you so that we can get to a consensus, is this forced choice to spend everything that you can to spend on all these items, or instead to go back and strategically decide what the priorities are, separate the needs versus the wants, and then those dollars that you choose not to spend this year, recognize that they will remain in the savings, shall we say, or matching grants, or for expenditure for a more complete project in 2025, 2026. So I think we need to reach that decision first. Do you want to spend everything? Then that would mean a transfer. If you wish to economize is the wrong word, I guess, to predict that we know one day we need to come up with X number of dollars of matching funds for another grant. So therefore, it behooves us to build our cash reserves, or at least to protect them in case that happens.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, there's gonna be transfer regardless, because your total revenues are gonna be, say what there is, the expenditures are gonna be where they're at. So really, the only levers you can pull are capital outlay, capital projects, and the margin is really about $800,000 there, right? So, so it's, you know, how much, it's basically how much do you want to spend versus how much do you want to pull back, and can things go back there? So that to me is, you know, how much can we chip away at this $3 million gap, right? $3,630,000 gap. And I'm for spending our money prudently and really looking at what are the capital outlays, our needs. I talked to Joe. I think it'd be helpful to us to sort of rank these things, or at least put some type of I'd like to even see a flip chart up, you know, like a vision board as to, you know, what do we rank, what is most important to us, and go down that way. And I think it's nice that you've laid them out here. I think that we should all be aware of them. These are the top capital outlays, and review them and look at them, sort of put them in an order as to what we think is most important.
If I might, can you also embrace the idea of, let's reflect on the expectations that we have put out there, as well as what has kind of developed. We have put a great deal of money into Porter Park, and now we are the recipients of the grant. I would personally like to see that as a priority to complete that project, instead of a scattered approach, a little bit at Park A, a little bit at Park B, a little bit at Park C, and then nothing really gets done in 1 year. I would prefer, this is just me, that we complete everything that we need to do at Porter Park. And that also means to go forth and design what the addition would look like, and pursue what we need to do to begin the first phase of what that construction is. We have 2 years in which to complete it. But in my opinion, I think we should focus on that, because there's been so much enthusiasm for it. It's a highly visible area. It's very well used. And so doesn't mean all of the other parts are not important. That's not what I'm saying. But let's bite off what is in the works now, complete something. And then the second expectation is Main Street. And we need to establish something that sets the tone, the priority, the branding for Main Street. And there is a plan for it. So I would like, in my opinion, that would be our second focus, those dollars that are committed to doing that. And there has been the conversation, we have voted to acquire property, and that property has an opportunity to become our first space in which people linger, converting it to a parking lot, a place, not, you know, the traditional parking lot, but maybe a universal use of space, a little bit of parking, a little bit of an area where vendors could be, or you could even have food trucks, or you could have a festival. That at the head of Main Street sets a tone and it demonstrates that, hey, we have a plan here. So I would like to know if you are in agreement with those priorities. If you are, then let's focus our dollars and our attention on those and consider some of the others as items that can be shifted into 2025. We can begin the planning of them because some of these require more comprehensive planning. For example, we've talked about Riverside Park and wanting Riverside Park to eventually be a festival park. Though we don't know what that's going to look like. We need to have more conversations about that. We need to have more elaborate planning regarding that. And that is something that we can begin, but put the dollars toward making that happen in 2025 and 2026. But let's complete something totally this year so we can say, yeah, it's done. It's checked off. And then we move on.
I agree, I'm fine with Porter Park, Main Street, I'd like to throw in there maybe a future 2024 and 2025 project on North Main. I.e. Hodges Run.
So if we are, well, anyone else?
I support exactly what you said. Joe, what is under the capital projects, what is the VH? Maybe obvious to everybody. What it,
Oh, sorry, yeah. go
yeah,
ahead.
so to me, because all these new, anytime we use an acronym, you should have that right away after that. The, in parentheses, what it is, so we don't ask, questions. So on anything that, okay, it's obvious to all you people here, but it's not obvious. And acronyms are important because they reduce the, but you always have it in parentheses for the very first time in any document.
Yeah, but glossary.
I got one there, it's all spelled out. Yeah, I understand
I get it,
it's hard
I
to
get it,
see.
okay,
Yep,
but here it's not
absolutely, yeah,
spelled out. So anyway,
sure.
thank you. I think this is a really good document put together. This is a lot more easy to look at than 14 pages of a spreadsheet. So good job on that. I agree with that. Let's get that project done. We got the grant. I'm all about that. The other thing, Main Street, that's to me, that is with Founder Place in place is going to help us develop the branding, the strategies, so that we can get the marketing and do the 501c. All of that is, putting together, in my opinion, the bedrock for us to move forward and have something to cheer about and to publicize on the website once that comes. So all of a sudden, our community starts to see that this board has collectively started really to structure and work. And then we start having something we can market. So I like it.
So prioritize wise, I've got a question. So capital outlay planning, and we've talked about this before, we got 150,000 roughly for the comprehensive land use plan. Is that something we want to do this year or, next year? It's something we absolutely have to do, first of all, and we should do. Now, the question is, do you want to do that this year or next year? I mean, that's a big chunk
Is
of
that
money right
part
there.
of the place boundary? money?
Nope, this is gonna be overall look at our land use plan. So
Yeah, to
what
me-
it's owned, where it's owned, what the future of our.
Critically important, I believe, but I think that that's something that let's get started with place boundary and then that would segue into this. Okay, now we have that structure because we know it's gonna fit into a strategic time.
Yep. I agree with that as well. Anybody there who really wants to press and do it this year, or do we think, I think we absolutely 2025 would be good to do that. And if we plan it now, we know that'll be one of the first things in the budget for 25. Unless we have other thoughts.
I would agree.
I think we wait a year and we watch this year, like William said, and let's start taking notes as the things we want to
Yep.
put in.
Yep.
As we visualize what's going on, it's.
I think this is helpful for this discussion, that we've prioritized what we want. But then we also should look at, what are the sort of we don't need immediately, right? So identifying, it's hard to look at like a $5,000 item or something like that and say, oh, we're gonna move this, you'd be here forever and you can go back and forth, but to identify things that we can delay.
Yeah.
Or things that we can put off, I think that this is the form to do that, so. if there's any other ones that we can identify.
That's another big one too, and we've had this discussion many times, and it's, we've got 500,000, it's under the land purchases, right? It's under the capital outlay village hall, the VH1. It's that first item on there. We currently have, $500,000 of property purchases. That I think may be higher than we need to have on there.
Agreed.
We have some great properties we've purchased and to do that start there. But again, I think it's maybe, yes, have money in our fund in case we, something just perfectly comes up that we absolutely want to grab and get. But I think maybe as we look forward to these plans, it's deciding, do we want to have a plan to put in place before where we're gonna purchase properties, right? Some sort of strategic plan of which properties we're gonna purchase, how we want to develop as the village versus, private development of businesses, seeing those that buy in, or the village developing it.
So how fast could we pull it back into the budget if we needed to?
Right?
Well, we did it this year.
We did it this year.
We move things around, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
So technically you could zero it,
Technically,
and
as
if
fast
plan
as-
comes up, we could
Well,
pull
the
it back
fastest
in.
you could absolutely do it would be,
is that your?
about a month roughly.
Is that your?
If you had to.
Honestly, yeah, if we can pull it back into the budget fast enough.
It'd be roughly a month. We have to publish for, I think, 15 days or so, plus have a public hearing for appropriation.
Just because we put the money in, we don't have to spend it.
Correct.
But if you want to pull it back into it, yeah, I would think that would be, if we can get it fast enough, I don't have a problem putting it back into the pool.
What do we
As long
do?
as we keep in mind that just because it's in here doesn't mean we have to spend it either.
And that's always something to keep in mind. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
So
remember.
all of these dollar amounts, if we approve them all, it doesn't mean we're actually spending all of that. We're only gonna spend what we want per year. It just means we can without that month delay.
Extra.
I wanted 250, but
Or one something.
Didn't we have it at 250 last year?
yes.
I say, like, when I brought this up with the whole thing, I think we should keep it at 250, and my whole thing wasn't to increase it every year, it was to start setting money aside into a separate account to get up to a certain dollar amount. That way we just have money aside for that every year. You know what I mean? We have that 250 to spend every year, but then we say, okay, but we want to throw $100,000 aside.
Yeah.
And that we notate, that's why.
And I had some discussions
having
with,
separate accounts and
yep,
stuff
I had
like
questions with
that.
Mark Olson too. And we'll go through and we're going to sort of redo sort of how we categorize the capital expenditures versus capital outlays. You'll see throughout here, there's some things that may be supposed to be a capital, there's sort of a technical terms on those, but we'll be able to have a capital fund or a separate standalone fund for that,
Right.
where that would be able to build every year too. We transfer into it and we'd be able to improve.
Same thing with the grant stuff, we have so much money in the budget this year for a grant, but we need to be putting in $100,000, whatever,
Yeah.
$100,000 a year into the grant program, so it builds up to 3 million or whatever dollars. Wow.
Is this public record?
Yes.
Yeah, yep.
So here's what I would say, going on with what Stacy's saying. As long as we can pull in the money, then we necessarily wouldn't really want to keep it in here, because if someone in the village knows this is available, we could always say, you know what, we don't have the money to buy the property. You're doing a lot better negotiation.
Yes, yeah.
Than having this public record and saying, okay, we got $500,000 to spend, then people say, well, they got, then it would force us to come back, hey, we don't have the money to buy it.
I would add to that.
Especially, and then I get what Stacy's saying, if you have something that is a fund over here that you're doing, but it's not tied directly to something, I think you solve both problems.
I would agree with both of you. It also gives us the flexibility that any amount you set is pure guesswork. It's merely a placeholder. So if you don't know what's going to become available at a particular time or the negotiated price, and it's easy to pull it in if such an opportunity avails itself to us, put it at zero. Also, we have heard from David Sidney, you want to have other individuals buy into
Right.
property on Main Street.
Exactly.
They have to have skin in the game. And then third, we don't have a comprehensive plan to even have picked out which are the properties we want. We haven't even discussed that, you know, one way there and one over there and one in the middle. Good does it do us? We haven't made that decision. So I'd like to see us in a position that is the most flexible, and I would agree with Stacy's recommendation. Let's just put it at 0, knowing that if we have that opportunity, it's easy to negotiate
And Joe,
and
back,
make a deal.
back to this, really the reason why we are doing it this way is because we have to appropriate ahead of time.
Yep.
Is it, do villages? What's the preference? I mean, is there a way to just do it like a typical accounting firm instead of having to do an appropriation like that? Is there benefits? of the other
Explain
way?
the supplemental.
I mean, so if we don't have, I guess, I mean, the benefit is that there's more control. I mean, it's taxpayer money, so it's set by statute to say that you have to have appropriate a public hearing. So a supplemental appropriation, which you'll hear sometimes, if we run out of money in one of these sort of broader categories here, there's not money appropriated for it. If we receive, here's an example, if we receive a grant during the year, fortunately, we are able to appropriate this year, the OSLID. Had we not received it right now, had we received it in 2 months from now, that money comes to us, but we haven't appropriated for that money. So we have to do a supplemental appropriation to authorize us to spend that money. So all that means is we have to publish, there's a publication requirement, I think 15 days I think published. There's a public hearing requirement, which we'll officially have for this budget cycle in the next couple meetings here. And that, yeah, and then pass that ordinance appropriating it. So it's definitely a check on it. But yeah, we always will have to have approved that bigger pile of money.
So can you do that in any time throughout the year or
You
is
can,
there?
yeah,
like, states
you are
that
able
you
to.
only have a month or whatever?
Yep, you can do the
So,
supplemental, as long as
July.
you have money, as long as you have either new money or money in a fund, you can appropriate that throughout the year.
Okay, then I'm
Yeah.
fine with going to 0 and we need to do a supplemental, that's fine.
Is there consensus?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Other, yeah,
One thing I think we could clean up is the Main Street parking lot and the demolition. Can those just be one? Instead of having an additional 50,000, it's just 400.
demolition is based on quotes. So demolition one is,
Can that just be built into the parking thing, is what I'm saying, because it's not gonna be $400,000 to build a parking.
I see what you're saying, so essentially reducing that by
Looking to
400 or
build,
so.
It's not gonna be 400.
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
I think that was for other parking lots though.
Yeah, but I didn't think we were looking at doing other parking lots.
Or undefined.
Unless you know exactly what parking lots you wanna do right now. I'm not gonna be able to design them and put them out.
I have another one I'd like to do.
That we already own the property in.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is it? Cause we need, it's,
I'll just run,
okay.
for business incubators. If I'm allowed to discuss it at this point in time, I can fill you in.
Yeah, well, we need to know what money.
Essentially, it was the project that I sent out to all of you. Based off of Batavia, Illinois. 8 business incubators. They have permission and acceptance from the high school to build those. On their time. Have acceptance from the owner, Martin Exterior, to join in and donate. To finish those. Essentially, they would prefer a parking lot and 8 concrete slabs put down by the end of 2024. And in 2025, they're able to go out and erect these structures on that property.
I just noticed, I know we have media here, this is very early on in the process. I know this would be, I trust.
Well, I didn't want to step into it.
As that, why,
We need to know.
I just realized this is.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
To understand what parking
This
lots
is
you.
initial looking at that, there's happened, you know, you appreciate all of the research you've done on it, we just realized everybody, this is very early on in that process, so.
So for our next meeting then, can we make sure this $400,000 mark is okay for what we're looking at doing?
I don't know, yeah, I mean, we can get some general estimates, I think
Area.
we sort of have an idea
Yeah,
of. If we were to do
and I believe that Scott contacted me during the budget process, previously. And I gave him $1 per square yard, estimate for parking lot
Okay.
construction using past bids that we've gotten. And I believe that he then came up with a number for the different parking lots. Yeah, I'm not sure if that, I don't think I agree with you. My gut doesn't tell me that parking lot would require $400,000. But prices are only going up. I mean, for instance, the Porter Park one, which is much larger, but that was approaching $700,000. So, but yeah, we can take a fresh look at it and get updated costs.
One thing I would like to add, maybe the definition of parking lot isn't the right thing. When we are talking to David Sidney about the space up there, it wasn't going to be just something paved over at X number of dollars per foot, but it would involve putting electricity there, a canopy perhaps, some benches, landscaping, and all of that kind of stuff. So not knowing exactly what that's going to look like and what that cost would be, rather than calling these things parking lots, can we just label them public spaces on Main Street or something? So that it gives us the flexibility
New development.
of,
So next year during our budget process, like we've done in the past, can we have visual aids?
sure,
We've had that in the past, right? Where we can look at a picture and say, okay, that's what it's supposedly what we want it to look like. And
right,
right now, like, I just hear parking lot and I'm like, it's not gonna be $400,000 just to pave that if that's all we're doing.
No,
Now, if we're
no.
doing another.
We're going to do a little, so are you
Right.
comfortable with public spaces
Land improvement.
or land
That's fine, but
improvement?
if his deal is gonna be more money, then we need to know that too, right? Or the
But
thing
it,
up in North.
Yeah, I agree, Chairman. Let's do it. Whatever, come up with a name that's more generic
Parking lot and
Descriptive.
or, yeah, more descriptive,
Yeah,
land
more-
use, new development.
So we're
what was
looking
your
at
phrase?
Porter Park parking lot,
Stacy?
Main Street parking
What
lot,
was your phrase?
Improvement.
and the incubator
down here.
parking lot. Am I correct?
Put it in land
Yes.
improvement, be done with it.
Those three?
Land improvements.
it's two.
Yeah, because we can do
Two
either one
areas.
under land improvement.
Pardon?
I was answering
Oh.
Carol's question, I'm sorry. Land improvement to me is, we can do anything to that, that's any kind of improvement, parking lot,
Right. Whatever
concrete
needs-
pads, awnings, pergolas, whatever, we could, just falls under that. And it doesn't sound like we're putting $500,000 in the parking.
So
lot.
Main Street land improvement,
Yeah,
just move it down to where the demolition is. Strike Main Street parking lot,
so we're gonna make it 450 and just make it one line item.
one line item. But we still need to make sure we have enough money to do both, and if we're looking at doing. More elaborate. $400,000 might not cut it. I don't know what else is in everybody else's head, I'm trying to pull it out. So,
I mean, if we're running electric and gas and sewer, and are we moving the big sign up front there back closer to their subdivision? I mean, that's all gonna cost money.
I think we're really,
Really,
really.
really.
Yeah, the process.
Especially if it's just an appropriation.
Yeah. We're just in general concept stage.
I have a question with Oslet. Do we get is that part of that 531,000 that we have to pitch in? Or 561, 531?
531.
Do we have to add money to that for land improvement? With yellow striping? You like that?
So, yeah, yeah, that's a good point, is that the Osler grant did not cover the parking lot. So we proposed that parking lot there as part of our grant proposal. I think I sent it out for everybody. It does not include that parking lot. So I think we've got Porter Park parking lot in here, we knocked down to fairly
200.
to a lot lower. So yeah, that is something we're gonna have to consider, and we're gonna have to, and just, we got 2 years to do this project, but we're gonna have to sort of recalculate that and take a close look at that.
This year, we have it scheduled to redesign that.
Yeah,
at 20.
And that's what's in there.
So as long as we redesign it, we build it next year.
Yeah.
Which is-
And part of this initial stages of the OSLIC will be, and again, it will come to the board for this, and that's in that 600,000, whatever, but. Part of this is going to be getting that design firm hired and on board to start actually designing the project, right? It's not gonna be, us doing this ourselves, right? We're not, designing us here, going to be doing the designing ourselves, so. It's gonna be hiring a design firm to actually design the project. That's sort of the first stage of it. And we'll know a lot more about the size of the parking lot we need, what their recommendations are. We've got some of the, with the uses we have proposed there and how it's being used. We'll have recommended sizes. We have 125, I think, previously, but that may not need to be that big or may need to be that big, so. There's a lot of parts. But yeah, I guess for the parking lot for Main Street, we'll move that to that 450 total. We'll call it the Main Street improvements. Like
Now is the,
public space.
is the additional 50 for 2 location?
Yes,
Yeah, with.
yes.
Yes.
And those are based on, quotes. So those are accurate.
That's what I thought. I thought it was for both.
Yep.
Something else that I would like you to consider, again, to move to 2025, but do the planning. Under the capital project fund, at the very bottom is McDonald Road bike path. And a number appears there. I have no idea how that number was arrived at and what space that would be. But again, back to the expectation that we will eventually join our bike path to what is coming through McChesney, and they will meet there at Porter Park. I would like to suggest that rather than just some arbitrary number here, that there be a set aside, and I have no idea how much that would be, but to actually do a design or figure out what side of the road is this bike path going to be on? What's it going to cost to do it? And how many phases would it take and what would the actual cost be? So I would like to see planning for this bike path as opposed to just an arbitrary one.
I don't see
The number that's in there, the 180.
180.
It's up there at the top.
Up at the top
capital
left,
project fund,
right
at the very last.
You said at the bottom, so it threw me to the bottom.
Okay, it's at the
Sorry.
bottom. Okay,
Oh.
that
So-
first
Yeah,
box.
that's important.
So do we know what that number reflects? That number,
No.
it doesn't.
It was
reflect planning,
it was supposed to
the whole project.
reflect from where the bike path ends to down to, street is it?
Where is-
Southbound down,
So,
Southbound.
Yeah, southbound.
to south down,
Is
so
that not?
it's supposed to go from where it ends down to south down, and we were going to do it in 2 phases, so it is completed at the same time as the Perryville path, because the Perryville path will be completed in 2026.
26.
So doing it in 2 phases, then at least it's done by the time theirs is done.
So you would be able to do 180 would get us halfway there.
Supposedly,
Next.
that's the number that Scott and the
Yeah,
And
so,
there's-
and yeah, my understanding, so, is that original cost estimate was put together back in 2017, prior to me, and Scott then updated that number. I gave him some unit pricing, but then he also accounted for inflation over the few years, but I know that has not gotten a fresh look from myself, since that was put together. So I agree with Carol. I think that needs to be something, and honestly, there's a lot of, design issues with that, being too close to the roadway. That, if you guys remember, you can't meet all the federal guidelines and IDOT guidelines for that. So I think that rises above the level of my day-to-day, that I can do on top of the stuff that I'm currently handling. So that would be something that I think the village should consider hiring a consultant to actually do, either whether that's a feasibility study or, preliminary planning and concept layouts, things like that, and get a fresh look at that.
I would like to see the bike path concluded in 1 phase as opposed to having a bike and have a road to halfway down to nowhere and back. And really just do the planning this year and do it all in next year and plan and budget for it, doing it the right way. In when the Perryville path is gonna be completed, so I would say that do planning stages, maybe budget for it, see where they're at with Perryville completion, and then do it in 1 swoop. Really have some numbers to budget.
So plan/design, are we looking to design it this year, or are you thinking that, or?
I think that we should do some studies and design, like you said, it's a sort of.
I don't know how to design it and build it the same year if it's gonna be that difficult to design.
Well, so I guess I shouldn't say that it's not difficult to design. What you're doing is you can't meet the design guidelines of the state. So there are certain things that if we were to go for federal funding, we would not be able to get funding. But you can implement safety features, like if the path is too close to the road, you can implement guardrail and things like that to prevent traffic from being able to, hit a pedestrian.
I know we weren't trying to do, but because we knew that there was no way we could afford it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the costs go up, but then you would not be able to meet all of the guidelines. That's the important part.
How much to design it then?
Top of my head,
Fine.
I can't say for design. I mean, to pull together like a concept and estimates of cost and things like that, I mean, you're talking, I couldn't imagine more than $15,000 to $20,000 at most.
I'm thinking like the residential road program for 2025, right, was 40,000,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
But can we-
roughly that, roughly? Or was it
Yeah,
a lot more?
exactly. The Main Street feasibility study that we did, I believe, was $60,000.
Okay.
And that was, that's reconstruction of Main Street with
So I mean,
storm sewer, things like that.
60,000.
Yeah.
But
Well, like 50, 50's right in the middle, so it takes 130 out.
There we go.
Do the design and planning of it.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that, 50? Just so you know.
Well, you can get us an updated number, dude, before that.
She did.
I heard it, they know.
Yeah, let's try to hammer all this out tonight, because we don't want to go 6 to 15.
Let's keep going.
I guess next sort of thing we could have, and Brandon can talk about it a little bit, is the residential streets program. I don't want to have a full presentation. We're gonna do a full presentation on this, but if you can just generally touch on it,
Yeah.
and then we can talk about what we have budgeted here, and so you can decide if this is what we're looking for
So
that.
the 7.1.
This will be for, no, let's go on the budget side. Well, this is the top of capital project fund, but you also will address 7.1 here, right? Yes. Yes, it is.
So residential streets program is a program that I believe started in 2018, right here before I got here. That came from the garbage subsidy, if I'm not mistaken. And basically the village passed an ordinance where 494,000 or 495,000 would have to be spent on residential road program projects. So starting in 2018, the village began to plan more frequent residential road maintenance projects. Do you want me to go into details on the past projects that we've done?
I don't have any details on that, but just how
Okay.
we generally.
So yeah, what we do, and I uploaded it into the board packets. In order to select the roads or provide recommendations on the road, back in 2014, Fairgraham completed a street study, a comprehensive street study, created an inventory of all the roads and developed what we call a pavement condition rating, a PCR rating for all of the roads. It's a numerical value. What we do is field staff would go out and drive the roads, and they would establish a numerical number based on the number of defects on the road, how severe the defects are, and and how often they occur in a certain roadway stretch. That number, there's a formula, and it's not an exact science. There's no actual, federal guideline on how to come up with these ratings. The state has their own way of doing it. Certain counties have their own way of doing it. But this way, it comes up with a number. You subtract that number from 100, and that gives you your pavement condition rating. So your worst roads that are considered failing, the numerical value is actually less than 60. Anything above 90 is considered good condition, to where more than likely does not need maintenance besides crack filling or preventative maintenance. So we use things like, as I talked about, the PCR rating to select the roads, but we also take into account the amount of traffic that the roads receive. So, obviously we have a lot of small roads, very local roads that don't get a lot of traffic, cul-de-sacs, things like that, that we might not and do not have the funds to be able to prioritize over, your collector routes or your arterial routes, the things that receive more traffic and that are going to deteriorate more quickly. The street study is meant to be a guiding document. It's meant to provide recommendations, But ultimately, it's not a, you know, super scientific or super, I guess, specific way of coming up with recommendations. Ultimately, we look to the board to provide those recommendations after talking with, you know, the voters and the taxpayers about what their needs are. So using that street study, we then came up with I believe there was actually a 10-year maintenance recommendation, and then an alternate 10-year plan. And over the past 6 years, those recommendations have come to the board every single year, proposing a project roughly in that $500,000 range. Now, the past few years, the board has decided to put additional funds towards those projects. For instance, back in 2023, well, last year, we spent $1.8 million on roads instead of the $500,000 that you were obligated to spend. Before that, I know we had spent 700, 800,000 a few, or at least one year. We also, there were certain years that when the bids came back, the proposed, or I guess the estimated total of the project was eclipsing that $500,000 mark, but the bids may have come in lower than that. What the board then agreed to do through the budget process is actually assign additional funds to the Class D patching program. And we would then ramp up our patching program to come up with that difference. We've done years where we've done $50,000 in patching. We've done years where we've done $275,000 in patching. That is how we come up with the recommendations. Again, the main things that you need to know are the pavement condition ratings, and then the amount of traffic that they typically receive, is how we come up with these recommendations. So going into next year, or this year, you had approved completing maintenance on Promontory Ridge, all of the roads within Promontory Ridge. And then the decision was to add in the roads in Hidden Creek, minus the Crabapple Court, the cul-de-sac that is not currently developed. There's no homes on it. So ultimately, that's how we come up with our recommendations, how the residential streets program started, the amount of budget that we are obligated to spend each year. And yeah, I wanted to give you a background on what has been approved in the past as far as funds. So if you have any questions about specific questions about what roads we have done in which years, I think I'm going to work on a map. We actually created some of these maps back in 2020 as part of the sales tax referendum. But I will do updated maps, and eventually we'll get those out, whether that's in a memo form, and I'll provide a little bit more technical data on what the village has spent, which roads we have done, and the maintenance procedure that we did on those roads. There's a lot of roads in the village that are in poor condition. And obviously we're pretty limited on funds. We got to save for things, and costs are only going up. So ultimately, there's a lot of work to do, but that street study, and I know Joe and I had talked about it, Carol and I had talked about it. That street study should probably be updated, because in that study, you will see we do provide financial information that gives you a rough cost per square yard or per lineal foot on roadways. And that is an easy way to plan future maintenance projects as well. And as you guys know, 2014, that's 10 years ago now. Prices have significantly increased. I mean, we were seeing 20 to 30% just in the past couple of years. So it's maybe time to start thinking about updating that document, but that document is the guide to then come up with our recommendations for the residential streets. And then ultimately the board votes on that, and either they agree with the recommendations or they propose their own.
So that benchmark 500, somewhere roughly 500, came from the savings from when the village used to subsidize the waste management. So they decided that's what the cost of it was at time. So that's how this arbitrary number came to be.
Yes.
Because that's where it was, and that way ancient history has no ties to our roads right now. So having that 500 as a benchmark, just because we saved that money many years ago, probably doesn't make sense to have that.
So generally what we've been doing is you'll see it on the budget itself, but we transfer $490 or $490,000 is transferred into capital projects fund every year.
Right.
And that's what we use it. That's what we use it for. And obviously this year, its proposal is at least, $600,000, $800,000. Last year was 1 point whatever million. So it's a way we at least have that fund, the capital projects fund, increase every year. And obviously we can determine how much more or less you want to do with that, but that's sort of where that 490 comes from. But yeah, no, we don't have to do it
The
like that,
origin
but-
is really, and the thing is, costs have
Yeah.
gone, and the reason that number there seems pretty arbitrary at this point. The other question I had was the class D patching, it's, set at 50, is that enough to do? I mean, that seems very, very low to me, I don't know.
So I can let Troy speak to that, but what I will say, Troy is primarily, him and his department are the ones who notice most of it. They're able to drive these roads every day. So they've got a better feel for it, but I do know even just the past few years, we had to increase that to 100,000, 125,000. I believe the year before I got here, so that would have been 2018, we did $275,000 in patching. The issue with the Class D patching program is it's not really an economic or a feasible solution. You're paying very high dollar amounts because you're doing select locations and the contractor then has to move to a different location, mobilize all of his equipment to install small amounts of material. So you don't want to get it's a fine line. You don't want to get too high on that budget to where you're potentially, losing out on money because it's not a very good, I would say cost per lineal foot or lane mile of roadway that you're improving. But we do have potholes all over, some that cause damage to tires and things like that we have to get fixed. 50,000 has seemed to be a good benchmark for us in the past. That typically, depending on the size, that usually gets us anywhere from 6 to 10 patching locations. I do know the Public Works Department also does, their own hot mix or pothole filling. It's not necessarily a patch, but it's just filling potholes. But Troy, I don't know if you want to speak to the 50,000, whether you think that's sufficient, but.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Since I've started doing that, I know like a lot of the class D patching would be for like if we had to take a culvert out, the road that we could use that to have them come in or something like that, or for a garbage truck exploded like a pothole from a cul-de-sac turning around. But it seems like to me, sometimes we're just using it for Band-Aids a lot, and like Brandon said, the price is a lot higher than if we thought about a bigger project, not a huge road project, but a bigger project that we could budget for and, get bids for or something like that.
We do recognize that it's maybe not the most efficient, but would you not agree? It sometimes buys time because we don't have 2 or 3 million or 10 million to throw at a particular total rebuild of a road. And there have been years where there were no dollars and we skipped road projects altogether. We would do them every other year to bankroll, knowing that, for example, we're going to do subdivision A and it's going to cost 1.5 million. So we're not going to do anything this year, but we will save dollars so that we can do it more efficiently and get the whole subdivision done. So it's been a juggling act. And as Brandon said, we have lots of substandard roads and it's just a matter of trying to do what you can, the best way you can. And if patching works for those temporary fixes, that's what it is. We have a combination of temporary and whole road rebuilds sometimes. So going back to what's planned for Promontory and Hidden Creek, that will not be a Band-Aid. Once this is done, those roads will be lasting, what, 20 years?
Yeah, yep, they should.
But can't always afford to do that each year.
So to that question I have, Brandon, I like the way you have the priorities and have the, sort of the mapping. How far out do we know, what the next one is gonna be and do we know what streets we're targeting for 2025 now?
So we use the street study. I mean, that had a 10-year recommendation. And I know not all of those streets have been complete, or maintenance has not been completed on all of those recommended streets. So we kind of use that as a guiding document, but we also in the past, we had strayed from that, 10-year plan. Ultimately, things like developing a CIP, a capital improvements plan, is in formally adopting that, or it can be an updated street study and providing that, 5-year or 10-year outlook, is a good way. We don't I won't say that we have an exact roadmap right now. We just more have that street study and the recommendations to know what are your lowest rated roads, what are the roads that are receiving the most traffic. And we try to come up with our recommendations using that.
Honestly, what Carol was saying, as far as actually being able to budget for the next year. If it's a bigger project on the horizon, to have that sort of known, or at least, have an idea sitting here, like what we're planning on doing.
So Troy and I talk constantly about that, and usually after the budget's passed for this year, we're talking about the potential next year's projects already. I believe that I even provided recommendations during the budget process for a 2025 road project. But we try to not get too far ahead of that because things come up and things change. So a subdivision that might not be fully built out, like Hidden Creek, for instance, might see a boom in construction, and we need to prioritize those roads and rehab them before they become a complete failure requiring reconstruction. So there's no exact science to it, no exact roadmap, but we do have ways to, guide us.
One thing I'd like to bring up with the Class D patching, as you're going through that and prioritizing things, I would just ask that you look at the road and see, does it make sense to patch this, or does it need to be reconstructed? Because one example would be Sixth Street. A gentleman talked to me out there, he's like, I don't know why they patched this, blah, 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 it's patch 10 feet, patch 10 feet, patch 10, the whole street. And I'm like, it would have been so much cheaper to rip the whole thing out and just pave a whole new road.
Correct. So I can't speak to, there are many.
I'm sure it was before you guys.
Yeah, well,
I just don't-
sometimes, and we do patching on roads that have already previously been patched. The issue is having the funds to be able to, do a full, road reconstruction. That's, for instance, Sixth Street. There's 3 to 4 driveways, I believe, on that road. It's not a major cut through route. So there are other roads in just that bad condition, if not worse, that receive more traffic. So unfortunately, Sixth Street, when we recommend it, is not going to receive a positive recommendation for improving. Now, yeah, we can absolutely, if we start noticing trends, for instance, the Sagewood subdivision, we do a lot of patching in the Sagewood subdivision every single year, but there are a lot of roads out there. And even just the Prairie Flower section, if you're familiar, that got improved, which wasn't a long stretch of road. That was $220,000 to do. So the patching does act as a Band-Aid, but some of those patches do last a long time and can buy us 5 to 10 years until we are able to actually fully construct that or reconstruct that road.
I get it, but if you get into an area like you're saying, Sagewood,
Yep.
maybe that's somewhere we should actually looking for
Prioritize.
patching there every year.
Yep.
Well, and these other roads can last a few more years before they need to be redone.
Absolutely.
I don't know what Promenade Street looks like, I haven't driven through it, so.
Okay.
I'm sure it's not, you're recommending it, right? But if we're having that constant patching thing, because we're just gonna come in and tear all that money back out.
Yep.
Is my biggest thing. We're putting a $250,000 Band-Aid on something.
I agree.
I'd like to return to how we can shift some things to 2025. Down at the very bottom, under capital outlay, police. Can we, under capital outlay, police, the last group of blue lines at the bottom?
Good.
Kick the feasibility study for the evidence garage until 2025 or later. It's a want, but not a need. It's not something that we have to reach out and do in 2024.
I'm fine with deferring it until further notice. To get to a point with Main Street where we really need to look at it. Or getting so
No, I talked to Sam about it.
overwhelmed with junk. that-
He's all right.
But leave the line item so we don't.
Yeah,
forget
so it
about
doesn't get forgotten.
But
Put zero it out.
zero.
Which 3 diamonds are we restoring?
2 at Leland. And, or I'm sorry, 2 at Porter. And then we were gonna see how bad Leland was.
Where's that one, the 60,000?
No, it was 15.
15, I got you.
Under parks. Why do all of these have the same number on first?
Numbers like that. You mean, yeah, oh, that's, yeah, they're all capital.
We're bottom two to them.
But in our new budget.
I think it's moving around.
It changed.
I remember, I got numbers on there
Just seen
because
it
they
as I
were
was
previously
looking
on
at it.
there,
I'm
but
like, why
those
is
are all
this-
gonna change, all the line item numbers will change. For the purposes of doing the budget, I didn't want to change it too much.
I just noticed it.
But that's the reason why though, because they're all capital outlays.
Okay.
That's right, yeah, that's the account number those go into. But we'll be grouping them more by projects.
Do you have, playground equipment safety wise in your budget already, or is that? Do you need to appropriate for that?
I thought it was,
I think that's,
there's,
Is it
There's
different from this?
Parks at 60,000.
yeah, there's
For like safety,
like upgrade,
for
yeah.
equipment that
improvements
needs to
and
be
capital, yeah.
replaced for safety reasons or whatever?
Replace or add 60,000.
probably some safety mulch too in a lot of them. Build back up.
Some for equipment here. Maybe keep
Toward
that-
down.
Just wondering if we need to keep that, if that was a separate playground.
No, no, no.
Okay.
Are we still all good with these, the new dumpsters, the retaining, the ADA door? Those all,
Just this, because of the size of those, I think just leaving those as is, and then we'll come through and bring proposals, and if we need to, as we look at those a little more closely. I don't know that all those are gonna have to be done, but so those are things we may be able to put off until next year.
I would like to defer the ADA door. In it.
And we call it, again, because the media is here, we call it the ADA door, our doors are ADA compliant, however. You know, it's difficult to open them,
The auto door.
yes, the auto door, I'll call the auto door.
Replacing the phone system, what?
That absolutely has to occur. Our phone system dies about every 2 weeks. And we have to literally go unplug it and plug it back in to reset the whole thing. We got quotes from our current provider and from our IT provider, and we have another one, a third one. But that roughly, that number is what's gonna need to be. And hopefully we'll actually lower the cost of some of the other telephone items throughout there. But yes, I would say, please leave that in. I think all of us would appreciate that, having a phone, particularly Public Works, because their phone goes out, just completely goes out once a week or so.
Yeah, we appreciate the phones.
Yes, yes. Please do not remove questions.
The cans and the string just don't.
Yes, there we go. We'll do that, that's the
Not long
whole.
enough.
The new roofs and
that's
the.
Roscoe.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
Wait, can we finish the door first? That
Okay.
25, you said take it out. Are we
I
taking
say
it out?
defer it.
Are we gonna take that out for now?
I'd rather it stay, but that's up to the rest of you. That's just.
I know it's caused issues in the past.
We're
but-
getting quotes for it. I mean, I think if you've heard anybody yet saying, we were looking at different quotes for
Can we
it.
leave it in, get a quote? If we don't like the quote, we won't spend the money.
Okay, so now 200,000? You guys are on the roofs?
So we're gonna leave it in. I mean, we're really using that for the most part for the Secretary of State.
What?
Well, the ADA doors, I mean,
Oh,
that's where we.
Auto door, not ADA, auto door.
I mean, we'll look at different options.
Automated door system.
We just leave it, yeah, just leave it in for now. I mean, I prefer to leave it in
Why would I
and
spend that kind of?
we'll look, if it's something that's ridiculous or something just very, very expensive, or even 25,000, we can defer it to next year and start budgeting or kind of planning for it,
It
but
might only come in at 12,000.
I'd like to, yeah, I'd like to leave something.
We don't know.
in
That's the
for it,
thing, so.
Okay.
I mean, that's my
Okay, we'll
preference,
leave it in.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
What
just looking for-
fences and gates are we replacing?
It's depends for the new area that, I know trustee Petty brings where those.
I get slammed, but there's more here. There's more.
That's what I was wondering, because I figured it's more than just 8 foot.
Yeah, well, it's the 8 foot and then the whole, the new, like behind the salt shed going all the way up to bring that around. And it's also for, blocking off a little section in the PD's impound. So we can still walk, because right now, if we have to go check on our generator or anything like that, we have to have an officer down there watching us, because it's the impound.
We just took all kinds of stuff away from him. He had up time to stand down there.
You don't-
He doesn't do anything. Okay.
Right? Stuff off Amazon, be fine.
And the $200,000 was for all three roads?
Yes, the public building, public works building, the little police impound garage, the salt shed.
Yeah, those are all important. Okay. So we pulled 812,000, looks like about it.
Let's look over the park system, the next group.
A big chunk of that is Porter. You said you wanted to do all that.
The, master plan for Riverside.
Riverside, you won't pull that?
Yeah, that could be a part of the 5 year.
I would agree. I mean, we're cutting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's 15.
Defer.
827.
Is a Chicory Ridge Park something that can be deferred?
I think so, if we're talking other land improvements. I think that would.
Are we adding 50,000 back to the Porter Park parking lot?
That's what I'm looking at, I mean, if we're gonna be, I'm not using the word, but if we're gonna look at other land improvements, yeah, we have to pick 2 or 3.
And I did say them a little earlier, and that I'm not gonna say them again.
No, is it just, yeah, I'm
Names.
trying not to use the word.
I would prefer it to stay just because it's the last unpaved parking lot we have in the park system. And we were really pushing to get rid of all the unpaid services.
Is that price pretty? Well, I mean, pretty accurate.
So that does not include any sort of like major design or anything like that. Our instruction was pave what's there. I mean, obviously, we'll have to do a little bit of grading to smooth things out, but that doesn't take into account, I don't believe, replacing that curb. That is currently the buffer between
Yes.
the pond and where the parking lot would be, so.
Does that need to be replaced or can it just be paved up?
So Scott's opinion at the time, he didn't love the curve just because of the angles on it. We matched what the existing grade of that was. We were trying to limit the amount of earthwork that we were doing when that first originally went in. I mean,
Is it cheaper to get rid of it and replace it, or is it cheaper to pave up to it?
I mean, it's definitely cheaper to just pave up to it and leave it there. But as far as aesthetic purposes, if you want, a more, and I know there's been complaints about the angle of the parking and some of the stalls, the width of the parking. So you have your parking stalls and then the drive aisle, which should be technically, if you're having two-way traffic, should be 24 feet wide. I think that's currently 24 feet wide. And we might not be able to ever do that, right? Just because we're constricted on the amount of land that we have, but
I don't think it needs to be 20.
if everybody's fine with it aesthetically, then I think 75,000 is okay, but if you want to make improvements and do landscaping and redesign the curb and make it look more like a, Porter Park parking lot or the Public Works parking lots, I'm not sure that 75,000 is adequate.
This suggestion, only defer it this year and bank that 75,000 and make this part of a closer look at what really needs to be done regarding the parking and what you want it to be, what you want it to look like and where it's going to be. Because again, it appears to be the best guess, not that there's anything wrong with the best guess, but I'm uncomfortable with the fact that it's not exactly planned, so to speak. I know I was there for the conversation where it was now graded and all of that, just to be able to get something there. And it doesn't mean that it's not important, and it doesn't mean we shouldn't be paving all of our spaces. But if we're going to again focus on Porter Park, the one that's more visible, use those dollars there. And then still, again, develop a closer look at what Chicory needs to be for next year.
If we can do it next year, I'm okay with it being deferred, but I don't wanna see it going longer than that.
No,
I
I
don't wanna have any unpaved surfaces in our parks anymore.
I also think that if you're gonna defer it, it should be done the right way, because your park landscaping should be included. It shouldn't just be some, you know.
we're gonna do it, let's do it right. Let's put more money toward it.
If it was gonna be bigger, it was gonna be better.
That's what I thought it was gonna be.
And I thought we agreed already before, we're gonna focus on getting a park done and.
Order.
So maybe next year we look at Chicory doing some of that.
And to do it
I
right and
think-
add more to it and make it,
So I think we'll have some good experience doing this Porter Park project. We'll go for RFP for design services, we'll get that designed, right? We'll have some familiarity with that. I think then that's what we do with, we can start doing that for the other parks, right? We start to get actual park
And the
plan
park,
put in
and the park
place,
should
and
look
designs,
consistently,
and
you know,
yes.
Chicory should look like Porter, should look like, they should all look the same.
Like Village Parks,
Not,
not Roscoe
not like
Parks.
this wise, this one just got.
or didn't put a curb here, or didn't put a bigger road in, or.
Again, if we do it next year, I'm okay with it.
I am very confident you'll help us
I'm good.
remember.
Well, don't take it off the line.
No, it's in there, yep.
Yeah, even these are being zero.
I might forget.
Leave them in, so
Oh, I
don't
think
forget.
it's good. I think those two Riverside, get them all. Tackle those.
902 for anyone keeping track.
I'm just gonna say, are we close to them? What do you
Close
say?
to 1 million.
Okay,
That's our target.
yep.
Oh, anything else coming?
No, I think that's it.
It seems to be pretty
Very
good.
close to this.
And again, we can still watch spending and maybe things will be even cheaper and.
Yeah. And that's how it's been in the past, even with the roadways and stuff, they've come in like way under budget. On few instances. I've seen.
Do we know what we have? Do we have anything left last year? Usually we don't spend our whole appropriation. There's usually some chunk of money that rolls over. The end of the year, he usually tells us, oh, you have,
Yeah,
but I know we bought a lot of property, so I don't know if there was anything left.
I got the, yeah, I have this in here. I mean, we will have some, yeah, we'll have some of those things today. I can chunk it up.
No.
Yeah, it was pretty close, it was pretty, yeah.
Are there any other items before we? Are we
Can you
comfortable?
clean this up for me?
I will try to clean this up, and then we can do that too, and we hopefully. That,
Okay,
You got the
when-
same number you
This
have.
is procedurally.
yes.
And is this then what will go to the board on the 20th, or are we going to look at
So there's
it again?
gonna be
as
two
committee?
more, there's two more steps overall. So as soon as everybody's comfortable with this, Jeremy, I'll clean this up, get it out to everybody, look at that. We'll have it on the board agenda at the next board meeting.
Okay,
What you'll do there is officially adopt this as your sort of tentative, official, locked-in budget. And we'll publish it, we have to publish it for 10 days. And then we'll have a public hearing at the March, whatever the first meeting in March is. And then formally adopt it at that first meeting in March and have there'll be a hearing before the board meeting. Generally, people will come to that. We'll have a formal hearing before the board meeting, and then we'll officially adopt our appropriation ordinance on the March 5th board meeting. So we'll be sort of locking in at the next board meeting on February 20th, and then a publication, and then official adoption on March 5th.
and the amount of the transfers now are down to about 2.
Yep, roughly, yep. And we do have some in capital as well, so yeah, it'll be roughly 2 million. And we'll still be about $1 million over our.
And create a line item number. Somebody who's good at wordsmithing here, where it is reserved for capital for grant matches.
Yes.
However, it can be phrased.
Yep,
Do we need to motion to send this to the board with these changes?
I think so, yeah, I think that
So
would
it's
be
not-
sure the formal.
It's not going under first and
I
final.
would send this discussion, everything to the board for approval,
If, you want that word.
just approval, or signing, I think a motion to,
Adopt.
adopt, or something, yeah, adopt the budget as
2024
prepared.
appropriation.
Yeah, so move to the board. A recommendation to the board for approval.
Second,
Question second?
Right,
Yes.
Eddie? Yes. Malaco?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes.
Yep.
I wish to thank all of you as watchers over many meetings to do that. Good thing, priorities and things that always. You got them.
Do you have a further presentation? Or did you-
No.
Well, do it.
He's done. I think that was
Very good.
My direction is stay quiet.
You know, in the future, this is. This is to actually have what our revenue sources are, what our expenditures are, all upfront before we even look at the budget. So before we even introduce that, that's very helpful to have. Our major capital outlays and here, so we know what. And then look at prioritizing what's tabs and then what we can provide, what we can move.
I've seen that for 5 years.
As opposed to. Well, I'm just.
And we used to do it. In the past, that.
You know, we're-
This
It was last year.
This
Yeah.
year. Yes, when they have them.
Oh, my first year.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, if you don't know what it says, you don't.
And we will, and again, we're sort of bringing forward our capital plan to the next few months, we're start working on that as well. So you'll have some more discussions ahead of time, before. the
Yeah, it'll
budget
start a
process.
lot- it'll start
You're gonna
a
be
lot
having a
of-
new budget program in place.
Yeah.
Almost.
Oh, I got some, oh, sorry, I apologize, I interrupted you.
update on mud bow.
Mike Volleyball, we've met with the Mike Volleyball representatives. They are working on, how we've given them an idea of where to move the, tournament to in the park, in Riverside Park. They're looking at how that will work for them. We had some initial discussions with them about, how to handle some of the crowd control issues, how to sort of work that event, how to work with, security and dividing apart, the park apart, keep it safe, you know, Mike Volleyball event. We're gonna be meeting with them, I believe, in a few weeks again. At that point, hopefully we'll have a nice plan to bring to you and sort of a drawing to show you, here's where the plan is for my volleyball. And they'll be submitting a special event permit, that'll come before the board, at that point as well. But yeah, we have met with them. And had those initial talks about just, yeah, good planning for this year's volleyball tournament.
They were going to meet with their board to discuss, the expense of moving their lines, but it was pointed out that their run will be shorter, so they'll figure that out.
Their run.
The run of the pipe, they will be moved to a place that is closer, less pipe needed to get the water from the river to the playing fields. And they were also enthusiastic about moving it there because they could put more courts in, which could speed up play. So now they have an opportunity to plan differently as opposed to having inherited a spot.
So are they taking care of moving the courts?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep,
Because I know that's special dirt, it's not his.
yes, we had that discussion, yeah.
Yes,
But the, yeah, that's a lot.
I was trying to find one.
And I had asked Joe, SYA has turned in their $3,500 for the year.
The girls, yeah, the girls basketball, yeah.
And all the supporting documents we request.
For the, yeah, the girls side, and we've met with the boys side, Representative Ryan Riddell, who has not, I don't believe yet has turned in the schedule and the check yet, but he was going to, I'll follow up with him this week, get that, he has a schedule in that for us, so we'll get that. But yeah, he's assured us that he's gonna have that in shortly, so.
And with our budget, there is a line item from SYA for revenues for $6,000.
Yeah,
Contributions.
yeah,
And I looked up what we got from last year. you know that. We got 5 donations of $500.
In addition to,
In addition.
in addition to their ration.
Yes, all 3 we did this year too.
Any other old business? Your presentations are done, public comment? No discussion, that we did one, I motion to adjourn. Motion second, all in favor? Opposed, are adjourned at 8:49. With budget.
Stephanie, I have all these things signed.
Everybody can take a good spot.
Yes. I was trying to figure out.
Right, thank you.
I know.
He was doing the slam.
Fine.
Did you get my?
Yeah.
Property I mentioned?